Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alex Thomson. And Alex, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Ari Huusela, who's our #1 offshore racer and just did the Route de Rome last year. Alex, Ari.
Nice to meet you.
So, Alex, how do you feel now?
Yeah, a bit on the spot.
Yeah,
Happy to be here in Helsinki, my first time in Finland. I spend quite a lot of time in Sweden.
Okay.
So I'm very happy to be here for the first time. Thank you for inviting me.
And you were lucky to get some sunshine today.
Yeah, it's good. Nice to see some snow. We never get any snow in England anymore, so it's nice to be here.
So, we have some questions for you about your racing. And first, would you like to tell us something about the Ocean Masters circuit? What kind of racing circuit it is?
Yeah, the Ocean Masters is a culmination of a number of events, which in effect is our World Championship. And there are two key events. We have the Vendée Globe, so a non-stop single-handed race around the world, and we have the double-handed Barcelona World Race. So every 4 years, we race around the world. One time is one person, and one time...
Every 4 years we just race around the world.
So I go around the world every 2 years. Sometimes with a friend, sometimes on my own. And then in between that, we do transatlantics, we do round Britain races, we do round Europe races. So it's quite a full, I say a full calendar. We do on average probably 3 races per year, which for us is quite busy.
Now, Alex, tell me about the last time you did the Vendée Globe.
So this, it's amazing to think actually, this Vendée Globe, I will be one of 3 people where it will be my 4th. So I first did my Vendée Globe in 2004, 2008, 2012. And let me give you the statistics first. 50% of the people who start the Vendée Globe will not finish. And they won't finish because, to my mind, it's the single most difficult sporting challenge that's left in the world today, and a true test of a person's physical and mental strength. For those of you who don't know, it's a very simple race, very easy course. Starts and finishes in France. You come out of France, you turn left. You go down the bottom, turn left to Africa, round Antarctica, left at America, and back to France again. And the rules are very simple. When you start the race, you must take everything with you. If you take anything on board after the start, you're disqualified. And if you step foot on dry land, you're also out of the race. And it brings up some amazing stories of human endeavour and adventure. My favourite story is about a guy called Yves Parlier, a French dude. In the 2000 race, he was in the lead group, fairly close to Australia, and his mast broke. Masts breaking in these races are a very popular affair. So his breaks, and normally what happens, well, what I've always been taught is you take the grinder or the hacksaw, you cut the stuff away, and then you go to the nearest place that serves alcohol. Yves Parlier didn't do that. Yves Parlier collected the pieces on his boat. The mast weighed 1/2 ton by himself. He collected the sails, the rigging, and the mast. He made a little mast with his boom. He sailed to an uninhabited island where, being a boat builder by trade, he cut a piece of the mast, cut it up the middle and used it like a spline. To make the glue go off, to make the mast together, he had to build an oven using electricity wires and candles. And then, using a series of levers, he hoisted his now 26-metre mast on his own. Now, we calculate when we do these races, one will give us a VPP that tells us we'll go around the world in 80 days, so we take 80 days of food. Now, this guy took 3 weeks to get his mast up, so he did not have enough food to finish his race. So he got into a sea survival suit, and he collected seaweed and shellfish, And then he finished the race. And became a legend for it.
Amazing.
And he wasn't even last.
He wasn't even, no, he wasn't last, no, you're right. So, as I said, 2004, I got about 1,000 miles southwest of Cape Town, where the boom was connected to the boat, broke, big hole in the boat, and I retired. 2008, I turned up with this fantastically brand new boat. We'd just done a round the world race, so we were really ready. And I remember arriving at the port. It was at night. There were 3 of us on board, and I remember thinking to myself, I must have some jobs to do. And then I remembered when I specified the boat, I specified to have a sink with an oval bottom. So when the boat was leaning over, the water would always go out of the plug hole. Now, unbeknown to me, having spent £2.5 million building a boat, I got a sink with a square bottom. And it really pissed me off that my sponge would slip down into the dirty water. So I wrote on my job list, make carbon sponge holder for the sink. And then I thought to myself, we must be ready. I went to sleep, and an hour and a half later, a 300-ton fishing boat drove into the side of our boat, made a 5-metre hole. And I have to say, one of the proudest moments I've ever had in our team was the fact that my team were able to put the boat back in the water, and I actually started the race. So 2012 was a much better one for us. We started life with a very, very powerful boat designed by one. And unfortunately, it became pretty obvious very quickly that although it was very powerful, it was too powerful for one person to drive. And so we changed the boats fairly last minute, and we prepared the boat. We concentrated on making the boat reliable. Remember I said 50% of the people who start the race don't finish? Well, we concentrated on the reliability factor, and we produced a boat that was very reliable, still very fast, and I managed to finish in 3rd place in 80 days.
Wow.
You had some work on the boat also during the race. You had some problems.
Yeah, you always have problems on the Vendée Globe, always. You know, there's stuff you have to fix, from Yves Parlier fixing the mast to me having to fix some hydro generators and some other bits and pieces. It's all part of the job, and probably one of the reasons why I like it. I think we have a video. We've condensed my 80-day Vendée Globe into 5 minutes. I wish it would really take that long.
So, Alex, what's your goal for the next Vendée Globe?
You're not really allowed to say it, but it's to win. I remember the first Vendée Globe in 2004. I went down there and I told everyone I was going to win. And then I learned that winning meant finishing. So in 2012, I just told everybody I wanted to finish. So getting the 3rd place, understanding the formula of how to produce a boat that's reliable enough to finish, and hopefully we've produced a boat that's fast enough to win. So yeah, now it's about winning.
So you have a new boat now. So can you tell something about?
Yeah, we have a brand new boat. It was launched in I say brand new boat. It feels kind of second-hand now. We launched it. We were supposed to launch in May, but inevitably we were late, so we didn't launch until August, September. Designed by VPLP Verdier, and that's one of the hardest things. You know, the first thing you do when you want to do a project like this is you have to find the funding. So once you find the funding, then you have to do it. And actually, it's quite hard spending money. So you have to choose a designer. And I probably wouldn't have said this, but Juan's sitting here now. We spoke to Juan K. I don't know how to pronounce his surname either. To FAR and to VPLP Verdier. And there are 6 new boats for the Vendée Globe, and everybody's gone to VPLP Verdier. Not because anybody else isn't any better. I'm sure Juan would be able to find some ways around to be able to design a winning boat, but it's become very risky to not do what everybody else is doing. And as soon as you have a couple of people go one way, the sums of money involved in building these boats now, we're talking 4.5 to 5 million euros. If you build a lemon, It's very expensive. So yeah, we went to VPLP Verdier. We've built quite an extreme boat. I think along the way we kept very well informed of what was going on with the other boats, and I have a bit of a history of taking the far out left field version. Whereas this time what we did, which probably a bit more sensible, was to decide if everybody's here, if we thought this side of the box was a little bit better, then rather than going right over here, we just went a little bit over that way. So I think I kind of feel we've produced a boat that's hopefully going to be an all-rounder. We haven't sailed it very much, but so far it seems to be very fast.
Your boat is black. It's a beautiful color, but doesn't it get hot in the tropics?
Yes, it does. Yeah. It's a good story actually about the black. Obviously we designed the boat with the designer. We have a team as well inside our business that works very closely with them. But when we come to the decoration of the boat, that is driven by our sponsors, so Hugo Boss and Mercedes. And when we spoke to Hugo Boss about it, Hugo Boss said, "We'd like to have a black boat." And we said, "Well, we've been working together now for nearly 15 years, and we can't have a black boat." And it's not necessarily the heat inside the boat. The problem is that the one would probably be able to explain this better, but when we cook the boat, we cook it to 80 degrees. And what you then can't do is you can't get the boat any hotter than 80 degrees, otherwise the resin will solidify and the boat will just fall apart. And we took some panels down to Brazil to test some white panels against some black panels, and the core temperature of the white panel in 34 degrees of heat was 55 degrees and the black was 85. So anyway, so we said to Hugo Boss, "Look, we can't do that." And they said, "Well, we think that's a problem you need to solve." So we started working with BASF, and believe it or not, they developed a black paint for us that reflects light in the same way that white does.
Wow.
So it looks cool, and it's nice and chilly down below.
Wow.
Sounds great. So how about the foils? You have the foils now on the boat. How are they working?
Yeah, we can see one over there. Yeah. So obviously everything's mad about foiling, isn't it? My hobby is kite surfing, and now I changed from the board now to a foil, and I can tell you I love it now. And so when we started talking about foils, we went to VPLP and they educated us about what they were planning on doing. It makes so much sense. But the trouble is, no one had done it on a monohull yet, really. Some people have, but they hadn't really collected much information. And we were given the numbers, the VPP, and it didn't take us too long to realise that there isn't really a VPP that's accurate because no one had done it. What they do, and one will probably be able to say, is you create a VPP and then you create a boat from that, and then you look at the performance and you refine your VPP to understand, to try and make it work better. So no one was really sure what would happen when they put the boats in the water. There are 6 new boats, 6 with foils. 5 have got a VPLP foil, and in our wisdom we decided to design our own foil. And honestly, we don't know where we are. So I can tell you it works. It definitely works.
How does it change the sailing?
As soon as it feels to me like the foil will work over a certain boat speed. Once you get enough water flowing past it, it creates enough lift, and then the boat goes up and goes faster. And sometimes it's 20-30% faster than what we were before. If we look at the generations, the Vendée Globe boat I did was on the 2007 generation boat. So 2007 generation to the 2010 generation, the difference average was about 2%, probably. Now, at some points of sail, we're going 20-30% faster than what we were before.
Amazing.
So yeah, it's very exciting, but it's very, very early days. For sure, this is where we're all going to go. It's going to happen, and for the next Vendée, the team that gets the foils right is the team and makes the boat reliable is the team that's going to win.
Now, your first race on the new Hugo Boss was the Transact from France to Brazil.
Yeah.
That was quite an experience. Can you please tell us about it?
Yep, no, I can for sure. The Jacques Vabre is a race from Le Havre in France to down to, I can't even say it, where is it? South of Rio, Itajaí. So it's a long race, 5,500 miles. Our boat, we'd only sailed for 14 days before the start of this race. And when you leave Le Havre in November or late October, inevitably you get hammered by some weather. It happens every single time. But because our boat was so new, and because our objective really was to learn about the boat, we decided that we wouldn't take the extreme route out into the low pressures. We would take an easier route. So we started the race and we hung south straight away, went very close or quite close off of Finisterre when all the other boats were far out in the Atlantic. Unfortunately, on about day 5, we were sailing upwind at about 10 knots of wind, and the boat was slamming, as these boats are always slamming. You get used to it. But after each slam, I heard a secondary. It was followed by a. I thought, that's a bit strange. And so I went inside the boat and ran up forwards. And when I went through the final bulkhead, I popped my head through, and I couldn't see anything because it was just dust. And the structure of the boat had failed, and the hull was panting like this. So I remember running back. It's a double-handed race. Running back to my co-skipper and good friend Guillermo. I said, "Guillermo, stop the boat! Quick, get up!" So we got up. We stopped the boat and had a look. And it became quickly very apparent that this was a job that had to be repaired properly ashore. So Guillermo and I spent 12 hours fixing what we could to stop the hull from moving. And then we started to sail very slowly towards Spain. We were about 400 miles away. We sailed 250 miles, and our repair broke, and the hull was moving again. So we stopped the boat again, put the keel on one side to get this part of the boat out of the water, and we repaired it again. Each repair, 11, 12 hours. So it's a long time in a little coffin, trying to glue things and make things work. And the second repair took up every single piece of material we had. So that was the end. We had to make sure we got in. And we were now only 100 miles from the coast and felt pretty safe. We carried on sailing, and some more weather came, which we knew was coming. And the boat started to jump a little, even at 5 or 6 knots was jumping. And I said to Guillermo, let's stop again. Let's just stop. 5 hours, the wind is gone, and then we go. And we had no concern, none. We had 40 knots of wind, just been coming for 1 hour. So the waves were a bit confused, a swell from the west. I was sleeping. On our boat, we have 2 doors, one on the port side, one on the starboard side. And I was asleep on the port side, inside. And Guillermo was on watch, outside, sometimes inside, and he was inside at the navigation table. And I remember having a very, very nice dream. And suddenly you hear the noise of a breaking wave, and the boat is thrown to the side, which happens sometimes. But this time, the boat just turned upside down. Literally, like that. And even though for an Imoca 60, when you build the boat, you have to go upside down to prove you can come back up, even though I'd done this 6 weeks ago, I was asleep. When the boat goes upside down, everything is black. And I woke up, and there was water, and I was getting out of my sleeping bag, and I could not understand what was happening. My brain was not functioning. Guillermo, when the boat turned upside down, he fell to my side. So he was with me, and I got out my sleeping bag, and Guillermo says, "Alex, the keel is off. The keel must have fallen off. We have to get off." And before I could say anything, he opened the other door and walked outside. In hindsight, probably the most sensible thing to do was to close the other door. Anyway, I just followed Guillermo outside, and we stood on the cockpit roof, upside down. And I went to push the keel button to make the keel go to one side to come back up, and nothing seemed to happen. And Guillermo said, "We have to get off. The boat is sinking. We have to get off." And I said, "No, Guillermo, I think we just have to go inside and shut the doors." And he went, "Bye." and swam out. And they say in a situation, a crisis situation that you're not ready for, you can do one of four things. You flight, you run, you freeze, you need more information, or you fight. And clearly Guillermo did the flight, and I was in the confused state of, I need some more information. But as Guillermo swam out, the keel started to move. And I don't know now whether my time in my head was wrong or it didn't feel like I pushed the button and something happened. But within 5 seconds, the boat was back up the other way. And Guillermo was in the water. I said, "Get in the boat, you idiot!" But when the boat came back upright, the mast was broken. The port foil somehow had come out of the boat and was now sitting on the deck the right way up on the other side of the boat. I don't know how that happened. And the boat was full of water, absolutely full. So then we had to call for help, let an EPIRB off, and we were airlifted off by a helicopter 2 hours later.
Wow.
I was crying.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask, how was you feeling then on that time?
It was shocking, shocking, especially, you guys probably know if you go out and you buy a brand new car, go get your new Mercedes and you park it and you polish it and you love it, and you probably do that for a few years, and then it starts getting a few scratches, and then you might sell it or you don't care about it anymore. But I was very much in the stage of brand new boat, just spent 5 million euros building, and I loved it. And I remember being inside the boat and all the sails are floating around, and it was horrifying, really.
Did you worry that you'll lose in the boat?
Firstly, when we were upside down, I worried that I was going to lose my life. And then once we got off the boat, the priority was to go back. So we were airlifted off, and we landed at the airport in La Coruña, with a search and rescue helicopter, and we were shown to a door. It was like a big white thing with a door in the middle, and I had my sea survival suit in, and I walked in, and in front of me was a great big sign that said, "Baggage reclaim that way." So it was a bit odd to arrive at an airport soaking wet and then to check into a hotel with a sea survival suit on. But the priority, as soon as we landed, was a phone. Guillermo, being Spanish, was on the phone immediately. We arranged the tugboat. I think I arrived at the hotel at 7, and I was on a tugboat at 1 a.m. And then we went out and we salvaged the boat, which I have to say was great fun. If I wasn't going to be a sailor, I'd love to have been a tugboat driver. So we got the boat, but as soon as I saw the boat, I knew it was safe. And it was a big worry because these boats are 40,000 man-hours to build now. We would have never built one for the Vendée in time. So it meant no boat, no project. So it was very.
How about the boat? Where's no?
So then we towed the boat in at 5 knots, put the boat on a Brittany ferry, and it's back in England, and she'll be repaired. We'll be back on the water middle of March. So it's a lot of work. Not just the damage caused by the going upside down is one part of it, but we're not entirely sure yet, but there are some problems with the construction or the design, or a bit of both. Basically, the boat's probably a bit too close to the edge. So we can't afford to have any problems. The Vendée Globe is a very hard race. So what we do is we add a lot more structure, take some weight penalty, stick the structure in, and so that takes an awful lot longer than
One of the ideas we have in the symposium is to look at people, not only the boats. So how about the sleeping patterns? How do you sleep on the long 3 months out at sea races?
The sleeping is the bits that people can't understand why I do what I do. One is to be alone for 90 days, and the second thing is for sleeping very little. And I sleep for 20 to 40 minutes every 2 to 4 hours. So that's the objective. And I'm trying to get 5 hours sleep in a 24-hour period. Sound okay? Anybody fancy that? It sounds worse than it is. You do get used to it. And we did used to think there was an advantage to get into the sleeping regime before the start. So for 2 round-the-world races, I slept for 20 minutes every 2 hours for 3 weeks before the start of the race. It was quite good fun to be in the safety seminar, and I'd put my hand up and the guy would say, "Yes, Alex?" I'd say, "I'm sorry, I've just got to go to sleep now." And the idea was that you would starve your body of REM sleep, and over a period of 3 weeks your body would learn and adapt, and when you put your head down you would get REM sleep immediately. And it does work. The only problem is you become the most miserable human being that ever walked the planet. And so we don't do that anymore. The reality for when you start these races, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So at the beginning of the race, you're sleeping 10 to 15 minutes at a time. And at the end of the race, you might be up to 40 minutes to an hour. To me, what I do is you have to obviously be a good sailor, but you have to be good in lots of areas. And actually, it's a discipline. So being disciplined about sleeping, making sure you never reach the point where you become dangerous or uncompetitive, but not sleeping too much and being uncompetitive. That's the discipline.
So how about the food? What were you eating on your races?
What do I eat? It's all freeze-dried pretty much now, freeze-dried food. I like a Norwegian brand called Real Termat. Anybody know of it? So my favourite flavour is lapskoist. Do you have lapskoist here?
Yeah.
I'm very fussy, so I only have 5 or 6 varieties. And again, it's a discipline. The food, if you're honest about it, it tastes like shit. It looks like shit. But it's the energy. You just need to put it in. If you don't put it in, you can't perform. And even I think my dietitian tells me for the North Atlantic I need 3,500 calories a day when it's warm, and in the south I have a menu that gives me 5,500 with a booster that takes me to 7,000. And even eating that properly, I lost 8 kilos in the last Vendée Globe. So we like to joke it's the world's most expensive diet.
So apart from food, how do you prepare yourself mentally and physically to be prepared for the race?
We all spend a lot of time trying to be physical about it. I think you can always look at an offshore sailor and tell they're an offshore sailor because they've got normally quite a large upper body, and generally below the belt they look like a chicken. Well, maybe not quite below the belt, but here's a chicken. So most of my weight comes off my legs when I do the race. It's a fair amount of gym work, but there's so many other training you have to do. So, the weather, the maintenance, and the mental. And actually, we spend a lot more time working mentally now than we ever used to. I have a sports psychologist. He's actually. Anybody follow the Premiership football? No, anyone? He's the mental coach for Leicester City.
Okay.
So he's leading the Premiership. I'm seeing him on Monday and Tuesday actually, and he said to me, I said, "It must be really tough at the moment." He said, "No, Alex, I've got nothing to do. They're so confident. I've got nothing to do." So we can, how we work with him is I'll describe to him certain problems or challenges that I face, and then he will come up with techniques to help me with those, challenge me with those. So if you imagine you're in the Southern Ocean, and when you enter the Southern Ocean, you suddenly become aware of your own mortality. You feel very isolated, you're scared, and you're generally just trying to hold it together. And when you're on deck and you're piling down waves at 30, 35 knots, at some point you have to go down below and sleep. And when you go down below, everything is amplified. And depending on how your brain works, it's very scary. So I said to Ken, when I go down below and sleep, I try to sleep, but my heart's my brain's telling me I'm going to die, so I'm full of adrenaline and my heart's pumping away. And I said, what do we do? So he's taught me a visualization technique that when I get down inside the boat and I lie down, I visualize that I'm not inside the boat. I visualize I'm not on the deck, I'm not at the top of the mast. I visualize that I'm at the cloud level and I'm looking down at the boat. And I can see actually, the boat's going fast, but it's not ridiculous. I can see there's no icebergs ahead, there's no containers, there's no whales. And that just allows me to drop my heartbeat a little bit, reduce the adrenaline, and be able to get some sleep. So I think as time goes on, mentally, for the kind of races that I do, it'll become more and more important.
So you're also famous for your stunts. Is that good for your mental training also?
Are my stunts good for my mental training? I think we've got one, haven't we? Yeah. I'll never be an Olympic diver, will I? People wonder how. First of all, there's no trickery really. I'm not in a harness, or there wasn't any of that. And people say, "Why did I do it?" Or "How did I come up with the idea of doing it?" Because it is my idea. I don't know why it's my idea, but it's my idea. And actually, during the Vendée Globe, I was asleep one night. I was in the south, and the autopilot turned off, and the boat jibed. So the boat jibed, the keel was on the wrong side, the stack was on the wrong side, the water was on the wrong side, I was on the wrong side, and the boat fell over. And they fall over and they go pretty flat. And to be honest, it's not, it seems horrendous, but it's actually, you're pretty stable when you're like that. And I climbed out the boat, just woken up, feeling, and I looked up, and the light at the top of the mast was flickering on and off. And I thought to myself, wow, if I needed to change the light bulb, now would be a good time to do it. So that's where the idea of the whole thing came from.
Any more crazy stunts?
Yeah, I keep coming up with these silly ideas. And actually last July we filmed the third one. The first one was a keel walk, me standing on the keel while I was going. That was a mast walk, and we've just filmed the third one, which involves an E-Class convertible. That was great fun. And it's quite high. And we released that, it goes live on 12th, Sarah, is it 12th of March? 15th of March. So a few more weeks and you'll all see it. It's difficult for me to know whether it's better than the last one, but it's at least as equal. So, yeah, and then hopefully that'll be it for me. I feel like I'm getting a bit old for that kind of thing.
So we're waiting for that, but what's your plan for this year? What's your program?
So this year now, it's very serious for us. We're Vendée Globe in November the 6th. So 4 years of my team, my life, my family's life, my team's family's life. We're all committed to that date and being ready to go out there and compete and win the race. We'll go in the water middle of March. And the first big race will be from New York to Les Sables-d'Olonne in France, starting the end of May. And actually that's the only race before the start of the Vendée Globe. So that's where we'll find out whether we're quick enough or not. And then we'll come out of the water for 3 weeks, where we service everything and check it all out. And then the final few training days before the start of the race. It will come, as we all know, November will be here before we know it, won't it? And then there really is not enough hours in the day. So for a team like ours, we're not a Formula One team, we're not an America's Cup team, we're not a Volvo Ocean Race team. We're a small unit, and there is a lot of work to do. One of the most important things is choosing the work that you do and doing less good than doing too much poorly. Does that make sense? So that's what we're concentrating on the moment, trying to make the boat as reliable as possible.
Now, Alex, you have a reputation of being fast on the water, but how about on the road? What car do you ride or drive?
I do have a reputation. I don't know why. It wasn't invented by me, I have to say. It at the beginning, when people said I drive the boats too hard and I crash them, and I kind of thought, yeah, it's quite complimentary, really, isn't it? It's like, you're a rule breaker, in theory, but you're not really, are you? You're somebody that likes to edge, the corner here and there. So for me, I used to think when I was younger that, I'm really fast. Everyone thinks I'm fast. That's great. And as time has gone on, sometimes I find it a bit irritating, to be honest. I push the boats as hard as I always have done. I like to sail, and for me, it's a risk-reward thing. The more if you're sailing in a system, and if you're pushing hard and you stand to gain a lot, then it's worth something. But if you don't stand to gain very much, there's no point in risking too much for it. As for what I drive at home, I took my wife to to the shop to go and buy a car, and we test drove several cars. And I think she's the decision maker in our family on the shore. I think it was when we were driving the G-Wagon, and the guy said, "Do you see that building over there? We could drive straight through that building and there wouldn't be a scratch on the car." So we drive a G-Wagon nowadays.
Okay, great. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Alex.